Hello friends, welcome back. Another Value Vintage Cards video. So I was digging through my cards and I was preparing for a response for the match game for the soon-to-be president-elect, Mr. John Mangini. Talking about a man of the people, having a match game with a channel that's only been around for 6 months. I mean, talking about generous and out there with the people, shaking hands and kissing babies and all the good stuff. So definitely keep voting. Make sure John doesn't just win, but wins in a landslide. So keep voting. But I was watching Adam with Splendid Sports Cards, and he was doing the same thing, encouraging everyone to get out and vote for John. He was doing a VR, and he also threw out the question and said, throw it in the comments, what would be the 5 to 10 sets that you think were the, kind of like most important, most significant sets if you were to be describing the hobby as someone that wasn't familiar. And he asked for everyone just to go ahead and give a response to that in the comment section. And I said, that's great, but that is such a fantastic topic. Like, why don't I just pause? I'm already pulling cards and trying to figure out what exactly to come back to John with. So let me just go ahead and pull those. That's an easy one to snag. Several come to mind, and then you give a little bit of thought and maybe give some consideration. So I wouldn't even attempt 5. I don't think 5 would do justice for my mindset. I tried 10. I ended up at 12, so I could do 10, but I'm going to give you 2 honorable mentions. So let me fire through and see how many of you agree. Definitely this would be a great one for just let me know what you think. I would love to see this just be something that people did as a regular, whatever your 5 to 10 would be. I think that would be a really cool video just to watch for anyone's channel and ideas. But if you want to share where you think I got it right or where you think I totally missed and was way out in left field, because that happens sometimes too. We don't always agree. So I will kick it off. First set that I think would be hard to ignore would be your Old Judge. I think that's way too classic. You have to include that. So I would say Old Judge just has to be on the list. That has to be, when I think of the, pre 1900s era, there's several amazing sets, but to me Old Judge is kind of the default. So that's where I would start with. I think when you get into, I would love to make this a tobacco card, other than T206 maybe, but I think T206 is just too iconic. Or caramel card would be amazing too. But for me, I'm going to go T206. I've got my ungraded Christy Mathewson, my original pre-war card in my collection. From there, I wouldn't go too much farther. I think this set is growing in so much popularity and getting so much attention, but it's for good reason. It's amazing. So I think the Cracker Jack set, 1914, 1915. I've got some 15s. No 14s yet, but working on it. We'll see. 20s is usually a lot of strip cards. There's some great cards in there. Obviously, I've got several, but I'm going to skip the 20s. I'm going to go straight to the 30s. And if you watch my channel, I'm working on the Diamond Stars, but I'm going to say, let's just go ahead and keep it with 33 Goudy. It's just too iconic. So my very, very rough Lou Gehrig, but that is one that I also have sentimental attachment to, so I will keep that forever. Rest of the 30s, the 40s, there's some great cards. I did not include any play balls, but I thought I would jump straight to 48 Bowman. I think once you get into the post-war kind of classic vintage era, I think you need to have 48 Bowman, their first release. For that reason, to explain the history of where that came from. It's still black and white. You've got the Berra, the Spawn, the Musial. You've got some amazing cards in that set. So I think you'd have to include the 48. I will pair that with, even though this is wrongly labeled, I would include 49 Leaf. For the use of color, for the use of a little more of a limited release set. You get some players in there that aren't in some of the other sets, so I think that's an important component as well. There's some really significant short printed cards. Your Satchel Paige, your Larry Doby, Jackie. There's obviously some really, really big cards in that set, so I think the 49 Leaf I would keep on my list. Next set is obviously probably a top 3 set for almost every collector, but I'm going to go 52 Topps. Give you the Willie Mays as an example of one. So just so iconic, and really, there is Topps issues prior to that, but that's really the one that people are going to think of as the first major release. That's the one most of us 30, 40 years ago would have been striving to get a card from. So to me, that's important. The next one is one that I would say is falling just outside my top 10, but I'm going to show it anyway. And it's for the reason of, it's kind of the end of the battle. Bowman's last issue. So 55 Bowman being their exit, in many ways, at least for a while, from competition, gave Topps more or less a monopoly. So Topps became the card manufacturer of not just choice, but only choice. So I would put 55 Bowman for that reason as a significant set to explain the hobby to somebody. 57 Topps, the first year of standard card size issue. So my Brooks is almost great. It's a little snowy scuffed, but it's just having that classic. I'm a back reader. I think getting that back to read, getting the stats on there, everything looks very standard, familiar to what we're used to, and I think that's almost the start of just the traditions we're used to, and that's probably a lot of why we start calling everything else oddball, because in 1957 we're pushing on that being 70 years ago almost, so 60 plus years ago. I think when you get into that, that's what most of us have been opening in packs and holding, and that's what we're familiar with. So that's where I would go. The next one will be another honorable mention. I thought it was good to include this set. I can't give you a significant reason. I don't think it's my favorite set of the 60s. I don't think it's anything other than, I feel like if you're going to explain the hobby to someone that's not familiar, you would almost need a way of saying, here's the bridge. If we go from 57 to, next up is going to be 1980, you can miss entire careers of players. 68 is going to represent the next to last card for Mantle. It's going to represent a, aging card for Mays, a mid-career for McCovey, a rookie for Ryan, a second year for Seaver and Carew. So I think in a lot of ways, that's just a good, almost pause. Let's make sure we're covering this era of players, and make sure people are aware that we don't just go from the 50s and everything we associate with that all the way to 1980. There's a whole lot of time and player experience within that. So I would still pause. If I had the top dozen, I would include that. Next up, I just said I went 1980. I think the 80 is significant because it is the end of what most of us will justify as being vintage. It's also the last year that there wasn't Fleer, Donruss, and then eventually, Score and all the different makes going on. So I think 1980 is significant for several reasons, and obviously the Rickey Henderson rookie is pretty cool, but I think that would be my 9th choice. And then number 10 is kind of the explosion of what I would consider to be premium cards. Fleer, Donruss were typically, for whatever reason, value, prestige, viewed slightly lower than Topps, it seemed. Not always. 84 Donruss was big, 85 Fleer is super cool, but it felt like that was, as a rule of thumb, if you look at 83 rookies, usually the Topps is the more expensive. And then they got into, I think after that, it was almost like I couldn't find it, so let's make it more expensive. But by the time you got to this was the premium issue. 89 Upper Deck, I just remember card shops would get them and then they'd be gone. And a couple of them in our town were limiting. You could only buy like 2 at a time. They wouldn't sell you more than 2 because they wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to experience it, which is insane, right? So knowing what we know, it's still wildly mass produced, and there's, I don't know how many bazillions of those graded. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands compared to everything else. There's a lot of Griffey's graded and mine's not. So there's obviously a lot of them out there not graded, but to me, that would be a good way to cap out, and then say after that it gets into really mass produced and a whole lot of different productions and a whole lot of story that I can't even properly tell. But I think for me that would be my 10 plus 2 pick. So thank you, Adam, for that inspiration. Thank you as always to John for making me dig through my cards and trying to find some fun stuff. And remember, guys, get out there and vote, and make sure you're supporting John for Hobby President, for all the wonderful impact and changes he can make to our glorious hobby. And then if you have anything else, if you think I missed anything, if there's a set that you would have included, something you would have taken out, I cheated. I put 12 in for a list of 5 to 10, so that seems to be my theme lately. I'm just cheating on everything a little bit, so I'm overdoing. But anything I missed, definitely welcome that. And I'd love to see people's videos. If you guys want to do a video similar, that would be awesome. I think that would be a fun way to respond to the question from Adam. So that is it. I will catch up with y'all later. And John, your video is upcoming. I'll see ya.